All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Ditz in the Dugout. Me and Hitch are back once again to do the weekend recap. Ole Miss drops 2 out of 3 in Athens against the Georgia Bulldogs. Rebels salvaged the last game of the weekend. And Hitch, this was kind of a weird one because you felt like we were really in the game both Friday night and the first game of Saturday, and it's one inning where everything just kind of gets away from you that kind of turned the tide there in both of those games.
Yeah, it's a really frustrating weekend. Um,
Yeah.
because, like you said, that first game felt really even for the first couple of innings.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had that snowman inning in the third, and
Mm-hmm.
which may could have been prevented. We can talk about that. And then Saturday it was the entire game was frustration.
Mm-hmm.
And then come out the second game on Saturday, you come out and you take care of business, and that's good to see. But yeah, it was an interesting weekend for sure.
Yeah, and it was particularly frustrating on Friday because you kind of saw the writing on the wall as the game played out. Right, you have that error there in the first to with the Charlie Condon bouncer there to Andrew Fisher at third base. Fisher ends up airmailing the throw there a little bit, or it wasn't a great throw. He ends up being safe, and that gets him in to score. Now, was it Friday night? I'm pretty sure it was. I'm trying to remember the game where they had that unbelievable error on Braden Randall after he made that good stop there at shortstop and
Hmm.
went to third base there.
Yeah, it was a
Couldn't
little bit
believe
later
that
in the
they called
game.
that an
Yeah.
error. Yeah, I thought that was an incredible play. Had the bases loaded there, and that was probably his only chance to get an out was there at third.
Yeah.
So not real sure how they ended up calling that an error. I thought that was a great play by Randall. Now one that they didn't call an error on that could have been prevented was on Smithwick when he wasn't able to get to that ball, hit to right field, hit over his head. That's a situation to where you almost have to live with that if you're going to play Smithwick and right instead of Trayson Hughes. Trayson gets to that ball easily, and that ended up costing us a few runs there in that big third inning, that big 8-run third there.
Yeah, well, I mean, and Smithwick got to the ball. He just misplayed it. It was hit.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when he hit it, I thought, oh, he's in trouble out there because that's a
Mm-hmm.
ball it's tough for an average outfielder to make that right-handed ball that's probably hit right on the line, but it's slicing back towards you as a right fielder a little bit, and what happens is you end up getting to the ball before you think you get there, and you don't get your glove up, and that kind of look like what happened. And you're 100% right, though.
Yeah.
Trayson out there makes that play, and we've said that on the show before that
Mm-hmm.
his defense is probably good enough to keep him in the lineup, regardless of whether or not he's hitting for power. But
Mm-hmm.
that's just an example of what we mean by that is he makes that play. That's actually in the bottom of the second inning. He makes that play in the second,
Okay.
and then it is 3-0 still, or maybe it's 3-1,
Yeah.
whatever it is. But we're out of
Well,
the
if you
inning.
take the Andrew Fisher error out in the first inning, it's still 3-0 going into the
Exactly.
third right there.
Yeah, exactly. It's 3-0
That
going
and your
into the third, and Riley Maddox is at whatever 25 pitches, and he's
mm-hmm.
settled in nicely. Um, his numbers, I wrote them down. 2 2/3, 7 hits, 9 runs, 7 earned, 2 walks, 2 Ks.
Yeah.
It's not really indicative of I'm not going to say how well he pitched. I'm not going to say how well he pitched necessarily because we didn't get to see him pitch well. He pitched
mm-hmm.
okay there through the first 2 innings and just was a victim of some bad luck and some bad defense. And it just kind of, like I said, it snowballed into a snowman number there, an actual snowman, a number 8 in the bottom of the third. And it's tough to come back from that. We tried. We came battling back, but it just, it that Georgia offense was locked in on Friday night.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. It snowballed into this big inning in the third to put us down 10-3 going into the fourth. But Ole Miss comes right back right there, right? They ended up putting up a 3 spot in the fourth inning, and but by then you've gone to Wes Mendez, and he wasn't particularly sharp there either. Goes 2 1/3, 6 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 walks, and only 1 strikeout. You were just really behind the 8 ball before you had a chance to even really try to get back in this thing. And then they come back in the fourth, score 2 more runs. All of a sudden it's 12-6, and that's really all she wrote for the Ole Miss Rebels there on Friday night. Unfortunately, one of the guys that you pointed out coming into this weekend for Georgia that was not named Charlie Condon, he had a really big weekend, particularly on Friday. Slade Alford goes 3 for 5 with 8 RBIs, 2 home runs. Just kind of to your point, when we did our preview show, it was Charlie Condon. They've got guys up and down this lineup that can hit the ball out of the ballpark, drive in runs. I think they're second nationally in slugging percentage, third in average, third or fourth in home runs, something like that. I mean, it's just a really, really good offense that if you ever let get going can really be relentless. Now, I thought Mike did a good job of saving some bullpen arms here. We went Wes Mendez, Mason Morris, and I thought Mason Morris pitched really, really well up until obviously he gives up that home run to Alford there in the 8th to finish off the run rule there for Georgia. But I liked what I saw out of him up until that point. Just again, a young guy, true sophomore that's trying to find his way and find a role in this Ole Miss bullpen. Outside of that one little hiccup for him, I thought he looked pretty good though. So, but at that point, backs against the walls for Ole Miss right now, right? You end up dropping the first one, and now we've got a double header because of impending rain coming on Sunday. And this was the exact same thing for Ole Miss in that game 1. We had 1 inning, let it get away from us. It was a really, really competitive game in game 1 Saturday. I thought Liam Doyle really showed something on Saturday. Obviously didn't have his best stuff, worked out of jams in the first inning, the second inning, but boy, he really settled down. And when you just look at his line, you think, man, he was on it on Saturday. But that's kind of the grit and the toughness that he showed to be able to put up that kind of game after the struggles that he had earlier on.
Yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to see out of Liam Doyle, right? A game where he doesn't have his best stuff. It's not bad. It's just it's not what we saw in that in his first or second start, or the start against Tennessee, right? That was his best stuff that day. He didn't have his best stuff, but what was he able to do? He was able to get you 5 innings, 2 runs. He scattered 3 hits, and he gave you 5. He gave you length, and he kept you in the game the entire time. Like you said, he got into a couple of jams, and he was able to keep his composure. And hey, I will say it again, probably every time Liam Doyle pitches, there are going to be a lot of pitches that the umpires don't call strikes that are strikes and that he's not going to like because of the way he pitches at the letters, and then he'll try to backdoor guys with that breaking ball, and things like that. So I think he fooled the umpire a couple of times in that first game on Saturday. But what he did was he got his glove, he caught the ball, he got back on the mound, and he kept his composure, and he got us out of the inning. So I think that was a very grown-up thing to see out of sophomore Liam Doyle, who had a hot start, kind of cooled off for a couple of games, picked it back up last week, pitched pretty well, and maybe now we're seeing him pick up that where he left off there at Tennessee.
Yeah, and this was the game for Charlie Condon here. He had an incredible weekend, obviously, all weekend, but goes 4 for 5, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs, a couple runs scored. But yeah, Liam, that was really good to see out of him. When you don't have your best stuff, you've still got to get up there on the mound, give your team some length, save your bullpen. Thought he did an incredible job with that. Josh Mallitz comes in after him, goes an inning and a third, 1 hit, 2 earned runs, a walk, no strikeouts. We talked about it a little bit during the preview show that Mallitz obviously doesn't have his best stuff right now, But you've got to, I think, keep running him out there, give him opportunities to get the feel for that slider, tighten it up. But because this bullpen's not going to be what it can be without him getting back to his dominant self pre Tommy John surgery. Uh, Overall, I thought he looked okay, but you see way too much loop and bend into that slider instead of it being really tight and a lot harder. And it's easier to differentiate the slider from the fastball right now with the way he's throwing it, and I think that's what got him in trouble on Saturday.
Yeah, and I mean, he made a bad pitch to the best player in college baseball, right? He went 3-0 to Charlie Condon. I think, maybe a runner on first, second, whatever it was.
If I'm not mistaken, he ended up hitting Corey Collins.
Right. Well, that's something I want.
The pitcher before there.
That's something I want to talk about too.
I
want to talk about that in just a second.
It happened a lot. It happened with 2 strikes more times than not.
Oh, I got it. I got the numbers. I got it.
Okay.
But he went 3-0 to Charlie Condon. And I thought, oh well, we're just not giving him anything to hit because the 3 pitches weren't relatively close, like we were trying to nibble or anything. And then he threw that 3-0 looping slider in for a strike, and I thought, oh, you better not throw that one again. And man, he threw it again, and I thought, why did you do that? Like, that seemed like a silly pitch, but that was the one bad pitch he made, except for hitting, the guy in front of Charlie Condon. And other than that, I mean, an inning and a third, and he made some really good pitches, was able to get some ground outs, didn't really see any strikeouts out of Josh, which we do want to see. He has swing and miss stuff, so we want to see it, people swing and miss, especially on that slider. But I think you really said something there that clicked, is that when that slider has that big loop in it, it is a lot easier to differentiate from the fastball. And so that probably is a telltale sign that he doesn't have his best stuff right now.
Yeah. So he ends up going 1 1/3, like you said, 2 earned runs, no strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 hit by pitch. Mitch Morrell comes in, and this is a guy that's pitched a ton of innings for us, and he just really struggled altogether. Doesn't even record an out, gives up 3 runs and a walk, no strikeouts before we end up going to Austin Simmons, which is a guy that we're going to talk about for these next couple of games, because I thought it was really impressive what he was able to do this weekend. As a whole, he comes in and goes the final inning in 2/3 for Ole Miss. 1 walk, 1 strikeout, 1 hit. Doesn't give up any runs, though. Only throws 24 pitches. I thought he looked really, really good. And for a true freshman to come into that spot and at least give you a fighting chance, I thought was really impressive from that standpoint.
Oh yeah, I thought Austin Simmons looked really good in the first game. You'll have to remind me in the second game. I know that it was a short outing, but I remember watching him in the first game being like, oh, Austin Simmons looks pretty dialed in here.
Yeah. So that's kind of how it went for him too. And yeah, he pitched pretty well. Like I said, only 24 pitches over an inning and 2/3, able to get the final 5 outs for us. Just kind of looking real quick offensively, Trayson Hughes with the big RBI, 2 RBI double there to at that time tie the game in the 6th inning. That's what really made you feel like you had a chance. Before, once again, everything just unravels in the 7th inning for us from a bullpen standpoint. But overall, quite frankly, the Rebels didn't do enough offensively that first game on Saturday, only logging 4 hits and obviously the 2 runs by Trayson there with the double. So, really, I think you can point to that more than anything that ended up doing the Rebels in on the first game. End up dropping the first 2 games of the series. And now here we are with the second game of the doubleheader on Saturday. And this is about as must-win as it gets if you have any postseason aspirations. And we end up going with a familiar name here to start this game, Gunnar Dennis. And look, for all the struggles he had in SEC play leading into this, really pitched well for us. Goes 4 1/3 inning, 4 hits, one run that was unearned, 4 strikeouts, and 2 walks. Those 81 pitches there. Really, all you can ask for Gunnar is to give us a chance right here to try to steal this last game, and I think he did that and looked pretty good doing it.
Yeah, I mean the one run he gave up was on that play where the Condon stole third and we threw it away.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think Gunnar is one of those guys that has probably been a starter his whole life, and we moved him into the bullpen, and that's probably an uncomfortable transition, and that may be why you see him struggle. Once he wasn't in that starter position anymore, and he comes out Sunday and pitches really well. 4 1/3, kept Georgia, where we needed them to give us the ability to score a few more runs than they did on Sunday.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. And then coming in after him, the return of JT Quinn. And Hitch, this is one that can be really big for the Rebels. JT is a guy that has struggled so far this year. Was our Friday night guy coming into it, had blisters on 2 different fingers on his pitching hand, and then gets demoted to the bullpen. About to come in and get some work in the bullpen after those blisters clear up, and ends up straining his back, oblique, something like that. And
in the bullpen,
misses a good bit of time there. So, but all of that's behind him, and he gets into this game. And I thought he came in and pitched really well, an inning and 2/3, only took 28 pitches to get 5 outs. Kind of the story with JT, though, is getting the ball in the strike zone. He did walk 2 over that span, struck out 2. I thought his stuff looked really good, though, and you've got to keep getting him innings and appearances. So hopefully the upside that comes from that right arm of JT Quinn can finally be realized, and he can become a big weapon for this team, either out of the bullpen or the starting rotation, however it ends up working out.
Yeah, I had taken a Twitter break in the second game, kind of put my phone down. I wasn't paying attention to it, and we had gone to get supper. I was listening to the game, and we had gone to get supper. I came in, I set the stuff down on the table, and I looked at the TV, and I thought, who is that pitching? I was like, I think that's JT Quinn. So, okay, so I sat down and watched this. I thought his stuff looked really good, as far as the fastball, the velocity was there, the bite on that breaking ball looked really well. What I saw that I like about JT Quinn, outside of what you've already said, is there at the end of whatever inning he was pitching. I don't know. He made a big pitch. He was in a bit of a jam, made a big pitch, struck a guy out. And the way he walked off of the field, and the way people congratulated him and stuff, it was almost like, yeah, I'm JT Quinn. I'm the guy on this pitching staff. Like, you may have forgotten it because I haven't been here, but I'm the guy that's on this pitching staff. And it really felt like everybody was looking at sophomore JT Quinn as, oh, okay, he's back. We're okay. It really did. I know that sounds silly, but it had a feeling of, oh, we're okay because JT Quinn's healthy.
Yeah, and JT is one of those guys that had big expectations coming into this year. I Bleav it was the end of the 6th inning is the one you're talking about, where he was so fired up and pumping his fist and screaming and everything else. And look, good for JT. I know that had to feel good. This year hasn't gone the way he's wanted to. Now he's had to battle back from injury to get back on the mound to try to help this ball club out, because obviously the season hasn't gone the way we want it to yet. We're going to dive into it here in just a little bit. The season's not dead, though. That's the big thing here that we need to remember with the metrics the way they are. Getting JT Quinn back can absolutely boost this Ole Miss team into making a run for the postseason. But he comes out, and I was really interested in this, Hitch, and I'm really interested to get your thoughts on it. Austin Simmons comes in for Game 2 after already pitching in Game 1. He comes in to face a lefty right ahead of Charlie Condon. The bases loaded or 2 on, something like that. But it was a heck of a spot for him to come into. And I thought, oh, well, he's going to come in and pitch to this lefty since he's already thrown an inning and a third or inning and 2/3, whatever it was in Game 1. But either way, he was only a few hours removed from already being into the game earlier that day. And ends up getting out there, pitches or no, walks him, I think it was, or hit him or something. But I think he ended up reaching base. And then Charlie Condon comes up, and I'm thinking, all right, well, here's where we go to the right-hander here. No way Mike lets him pitch to Charlie Condon the way he was swinging the bat. And I'll be damned, he did. And not only did he let him pitch to him, he goes up there and he strikes him out in 3 pitches, which was obviously incredibly impressive. But then it's not over with. After that, you got Slade Alford coming up, who we've already talked about, had such a big weekend against the Rebels. Still doesn't pull him out. Lets him pitch to him as well.
And he hammers left-handed pitching.
You know, he ends up striking him out as well, and then ends up getting the third inning to get out of it. Just an absolute monstrous spot for a true freshman that has already pitched earlier that day. You know, there's not a whole lot left we can say about Austin Simmons, but that was a really, really special moment for a player that you can look at and think, okay, he's the real deal. He's going to be a big-time arm for us at some point.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously I was kidding a while ago when I said I don't remember him in the second game. He looked really good. I mean, and look, sometimes Mike rolls the dice and sometimes it works. Sometimes he rolls the dice and it doesn't make a damn bit of sense, and it works.
This was one of those situations.
This was one of those situations, especially letting him pitch to Slade Alford, who had been swinging the bat so well and you know, who swings it pretty well against lefties. But hey, all credit to Austin Simmons. He went out there, you know, and got the job done. You know, they did score an unearned run there, but he kept us in the lead, and that's all that mattered because we ended up winning 3-2.
Yeah. So great job by him. And then, you know, we'll go ahead and mention Braden Jones as well, guy we've talked a lot about on the show throughout the year, really coming into his own. Pitches the final 2 innings, 1 hit, no run, 3 strikeouts. Records the saves and ends up salvaging it for the Rebels here. Real quick, some things that we touched on coming into the weekend that ended up coming to fruition. The lefties had some big weekends for us, right? Fisher and Furness, both home runs. Hughes with the big double from the left-handed side there. So that was really nice to see that those guys were able to have some success. I thought Jackson Ross had a good weekend. Leger with the home run in the second game yesterday to get the scoring started for us. So Braden Randall 2 for 4, another lefty that had some success over the weekend. So great job by those guys. But we need more of it, right? You still look at it, and the offense only puts up 3 runs in essentially a Sunday game in the SEC. Those are supposed to be your run scoring days. But look, they ended up getting the job done, and good for them because the Rebels' postseason chances would have been in peril if we didn't pick up that third game yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, really, they would have, and I thought they were in peril going into the third game. You know, but the more I looked at it, I don't know why I was thinking we've only got 9 SEC games left. I was forgetting a series apparently. Alabama, I think it was the Alabama series. I wasn't paying attention to maybe, but we still have 12 games, right? 6 and 10. I think you got to go
12.
6 and 12. You got to go 9 and 3, or 8 and 12. I'm sorry, 8 and 4.
We need to go. I say we need to go 7 and 5 to have a realistic chance. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to get in at 7 and 5, but I think that gives us a really good chance. We got the number 2 strength of schedule right now, a top 30 RPI, which is pretty good. And if I'm about to lay it out for you, if we do what we need to do to get to that number, that RPI is going to climb probably into the low 20s, I would assume. But yeah, just kind of looking at it, 6 and 12 right now. We have series at home against Alabama, go to Auburn, come back home for Texas A&M, then travel to Baton Rouge to close the year. I've got us going 2-1 against Alabama, taking 2 games at Auburn. You have to take that road series, which is something we haven't been able to do a whole lot this year. Haven't played super well on the road, but that's got to change if you're going to have a chance at the postseason. But take 2 from Auburn, come back home and find a way to get 1 against Texas A&M. Texas A&M is right now probably playing the best out of anybody in the entire country. They're red hot right now. But you got to find a way to get one at home against them, and then go to Baton Rouge against a team that hasn't been playing super well so far this year, and take two in Baton Rouge. Um, kind of reminiscent of that 2022 season when we had to travel to Baton Rouge and you knew you had to get three when you went. And they did end up getting three. But if you win 2 out of 3 against Alabama, Auburn, and LSU, take one from Texas A&M, that gets you to 13-17. And one thing that really helps Ole Miss, we still have the Governor's Cup left. It doesn't count towards the SEC standings. But in the past, and I don't know why it still wouldn't be the case, the committee views it as an SEC game. So if that's still the case and they still view it as an SEC game, that gets you to 14-17 with the metrics that we have currently and the ones that we will have if we end up doing what we need to do to get to that number. I think 14-17 with that Governor's Cup win is going to get you into the NCAA tournament. You got to think we still got to play in Hattiesburg against Southern Miss. That's another really good RPI opportunity to bolster that as well. So I think if you do all those things, Ole Miss still has a legitimate shot here at the postseason, but we can't have any more letdowns like we had this past weekend against Georgia. Now you got to start winning series because time's about to run out on them.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I mean, you got to take it one series at a time. I mean, first you got to take care of Alabama. They're coming here this weekend for double decker, and you've got to take at least 2 out of 3 in that series, and so I'm sure we'll talk about it later in the week.
We will.
But yeah,
and that's a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series too. Just so everybody knows, I Bleav Thursday games on ESPNU. All right, before we get into the last bit of this show, I do want to touch a little bit on Mason Nichols. Me and Hitch have no information on Mason Nichols. Chase Parham had tweeted out on Thursday that he was experiencing shoulder soreness. I don't know if that was before his start on Sunday. Surely it was after. I find it really hard to believe that with shoulder stiffness, Mike would have run him out there to pitch damn near 7 innings. Even though it was a game we had to have, Mike's not going to put somebody in that kind of situation to further damage their shoulder and really jeopardize their career at that point. So I imagine it's something that happened after that start. If there's been an update from Bianco or anybody else, I have not seen it as of this recording, but it's something we'll monitor. Me and Hitch will try to dig something up on that and see if we can find a status for Mason Nichols, because I'm not sure us getting to that win threshold is going to be possible without Mason. He's been an enormous part of this Ole Miss bullpen and starting rotation, quite frankly. He's done both, and he's done both really well. So we need to get him healthy, get him back on the mound. I did think it was interesting. We didn't see Connor Spencer this weekend either. I thought for sure we would go to him in that third game, going into the 9th inning there to close it out. Stuck with Braden Jones, so maybe it was just situational type where Mike wanted to let Braden close it out, and he did. But as far as I know, nothing wrong with Connor Spencer, but definitely something I'll be keeping an eye on going into the midweek and obviously into the series against Alabama, since he did not pitch this weekend either. So one thing we want to do to end this show, though.
Wait, hang on. Wait, before you go to that,
Go ahead.
All right, so the Charlie Condon numbers for the weekend, right? He ends up going 7 for 14, 4 doubles, 2 bombs. All right, whatever. Those numbers, those are fine. I mean, they're not fine, but I'll tell you why those numbers were so good. Because he had 16 plate appearances over the course of the weekend, and in 8 of those plate appearances, we either hit the guy or walked the guy in front of him. Half of them. The best player in college baseball, we hit the guy or walked the guy who bats in front of him 8 times. Half of his at-bats, we did that. It didn't really hurt us on Friday night at all. Saturday killed us. He went double home run in the bottom of the 5th and bottom of the 7th after Corey Collins was hit in front of him. Just wanted to throw those fun numbers out there since I looked those up. Also, what? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and of those 8, I would venture to guess at least 4 of those would have ended the inning if we had not walked or hit the batter in front of him. I know
Yep.
there were some 2-out situations there where you were going to get out of the inning without facing Charlie Condon at all. And 2 of them off the top of my head, I know you had 2 strikes where you ended up hitting the guy to bring Condon to the plate.
I don't think he let off an inning at all.
Mm-mm.
But so talking about JT Quinn, I thought about this earlier, and I wanted your thoughts on it.
Okay.
So the plan for JT Quinn is, I think I saw somebody tweet, I guess I should have looked at this, that maybe he'll be coming out of the bullpen on the weekend or something next weekend. I thought I'd like to see him pitch on Tuesday night and then maybe out of the bullpen. Like, why don't you start him on Tuesday night? Why not start him on Tuesday night? Let him try to get some length, and then, give him 4 or 5 days rest to Sunday, and then he can come out of the bullpen and pitch on Sunday if he wants to. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly an option. I think right now the situation we're running into is you also have Grayson Saunier that hasn't pitched in just over 2 weeks now. You've got to start getting him some innings and some work in. I think that's what Tuesday night is going to be used for. I think you'll see Grayson there. Been trying to get him to pitch on Tuesday nights for the last 2 weeks, and we keep getting rained out. So he hasn't had any work there. So I think that's what you can see Tuesday. Get Grayson in there and see what he can do. Try to get him back on track. Because look, we only have 3 more midweek games left the rest of the year, and you're going to need guys like Saunier and Quinn if you end up getting the rotation settled. Say you keep Mason Nichols in that Sunday role, then you're going to need guys like Saunier and Quinn to come out of the bullpen because you're not going to have those midweek games anymore. So that'll just give you a little bit of extra depth if we're able to make a postseason run. Obviously, that's putting the cart in front of the horse a little bit right now, but that's definitely something you've got to look at. So, but yeah, I think Saunier is what you'll see on Tuesday. And then probably see Quinn keep coming out of the bullpen for probably some extended work, more than an inning, So maybe something more like we saw this past Saturday. So that's just kind of my thought there. But we'll see how it all ends up playing out, especially if Nichols is injured. Then you're going to be looking for a Sunday starter again anyway. But that's my thoughts there. So, all right, final game against Georgia, Game 3, Mike Bianco notches career win 1,000. I've really enjoyed since that game ended last night and even into this morning, Sunday morning, watching the video tributes. Really enjoy seeing the former players give their congratulations to Mike. So just from my end, big congratulations to Mike Bianco. He is Ole Miss baseball. He's built this program into one of the better programs in the country. He is the only coach of the major 3 sports to win a national championship here at Ole Miss since the 60s, back when John Vaught coached football. So big congrats to Mike. Love him. Won't be long before we're revealing a statue of Mike Bianco at outside of Swayze Field coming up. But that got me thinking, me and Hitch were going to put together an all-time Mike Bianco team since he's been here at Ole Miss. That's the way we're going to commemorate Mike Bianco, just to kind of give y'all an idea of how many great players have come through this program since he's taken over 24 years ago. And I think even more impressive is after I get through mine, you'll think of so many great players that didn't even make my list, which I think is just a testament to Mike and what he's been able to build here over the past 24 years.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, when I was looking at the stuff, my first thought was, oh, well, if they made it to the show, then they have to go on the list because, I mean, the best player that might. But you get to looking at it, and there's a lot of guys who are near and dear to Ole Miss baseball fans' hearts for just a couple of things maybe that they did, and so I think it's a good idea.
There's a couple that I know that didn't make my list that made the majors and had good careers there in the major leagues as well. But I'll start mine off. I'll give you the fielders first in the Mike Bianco era. For catcher, this is obviously a really tough one because we've had nothing but catcher after catcher after catcher since Mike Bianco took over. That's one of the positions that we've always been really good at. So I ended up landing on Stuart Turner. as the catcher during the Mike Bianco era. You obviously could have gone with, Will Allen or Hayden Dunhurst, Cooper Johnson. Just a number of guys. Nick Fortes, who's in the majors right now with the Marlins.
Thomas Dillard.
Yeah. Thomas Dillard played a little bit of catcher for us. Henry Lartigue's another guy. Barry Gunther, Brett Basham, those guys back in the 2000s that did such a good job for us. But Stuart Turner, he was the total package back there. If I'm not mistaken, I didn't look it up because I'm pretty sure I'm right, that he ended up winning the batting title in the SEC, hit over 370 for us after he came from the JUCO ranks, and was an absolute dude behind the plate too. You didn't want to run on Stuart Turner. He ended up getting a cup of coffee in the major leagues with the Cincinnati Reds, made it up, played a little bit for them. But for my money, Stuart Turner was the best catcher I've seen at Ole Miss, and that's high praise because there's a lot of really good ones that have come through this program.
Oh yeah, for sure. When I was looking at the list, there were a lot of names, and as you were saying them that were coming back, as far as like Barry Gunther and all of those guys. I went with Cooper Johnson for me, just because when I and I'll say this too, there is a real blind spot for me there in the 2010 to 2015, 16, 17 range. But when I started gravitating back towards Ole Miss baseball, he was the catcher, that I remember, and he was so good behind the plate. And then he had some big hits in the SEC tournament that year, and for me, it's Cooper Johnson.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to argue if you went with any combination of catchers here at Ole Miss. There's just a ton of them that you could go to. First base, I think, is really easy. Maybe not everybody agrees, but I went Stephen Head, the three-time All-American. He was the guy that really started putting Ole Miss on the map, playing first base, coming in and closing for us as well. Just an absolutely dynamic player, maybe the greatest Ole Miss baseball player in the history of our program. Stephen was just incredible, though. He could hit lefties, he could hit righties, he could hit for power, hit for average. And then after he did all that, he'd come in and he'd slam the door on you, too. I think first base is pretty easy with Stephen Head. I know a lot of people are going to want Tim Elko in there, and for good reason. He is the guy that has a statue at Ole Miss, won a national championship. But I think Stephen Head's a pretty easy call here at first base.
Yeah, I went with Stephen Head too myself. This was a way that I could get him in and still have more pitchers to pick too.
Yeah. That's the way I did that as well. So second base, I ended up going with Anthony Servideo here. I love the way he played switch hitter, played center field for second base, and then moved over to shortstop before COVID shut us down and ended that season. Servideo is one of those guys I think is just a really underrated player for how well he played at all the different positions too. He was a great hitter, a great defender. He could run, he could hit for power, hit for average, and play a multiple of different positions as well. So I went with Servideo here at second base. You could have put him a couple different spots, but I always liked Servideo, and so that's why I plugged him in there at second.
Yeah, I like Servideo too. I think unfortunately for him, he falls into that Justin Bench category with me, that he was so good at everything that he almost gets lost in it a little bit. I too went with somebody a little more recent. I went with Peyton Chatagnier. Ever since he came onto campus, right, as a freshman, he's just been so fun to watch. Yeah, and he probably didn't materialize into what he should have been. But if we're talking about my second baseman, when I think of Mike Bianco, it's Peyton Chatagnier, just for the simple fact that he played 5 years here, right? With the COVID year, he played 5 years.
Probably so.
And so, now, like you said, there are other guys that probably are more deserving, but if we're going for me, it's Peyton Chatagnier.
Yeah. I think probably the most popular pick here would probably be Justin Henry back in the early 2010s or late 2000s, early 2010s. Justin was a really great player. High average, super fast runner though. He could steal 40 or 50 bases without blinking an eye. And really good defensively. That was the other guy I considered there at second base was Justin Henry. Third base, I ended up going Tyler Keenan here. Another guy whose career is probably overshadowed by the fact that 2020 year got cut short. Him and Servideo were the best back-to-back hitters in a lineup in the entire country before it got shut down. But Tyler Keenan had a really good freshman year before that as well. He was a draft-eligible sophomore, so he was gone after that COVID-shortened year. But as soon as he stepped on campus, he hit an absolute ton, played a really good third base. I just went with him because I think it's way too overshadowed because of how little he played here because of COVID. If he would have been able to play 2 full seasons here, he would go down as one of the great Ole Miss third basemen of all time. I think Chris Coglin's a guy you could obviously use right here as well, a guy that played for a while in the majors, won Rookie of the Year there for the Marlins, scored the game-winning run for the Cubs in the World Series, a really decorated college and major league career there for Chris Coglin. That was the other guy I considered, but I wanted to give this one to Tyler Keenan and give him a shout-out here on this one.
Yeah, and I thought about Tyler Keenan myself, but I think one of the reasons you said was, he had that shortened COVID year where we were really set up to make a big run, I think, and probably would have made him even more of a contender here. He was a very good one.
Yeah.
For me, I'm going with Coglin, right? Yeah. Just because he's probably, like I said, the most popular pick here, and also he's another guy that played a lot of different places, and this is a way for me to get him in here and use maybe an outfield spot for somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and now this is another tough one, shortstop. It's programs had shortstop after shortstop come through this program. You could have used Servideo here. You've got guys Zach Cozart and Raul Robinson and Jacob Gonzalez. I went with Gray.
I know where you're going. I knew it.
Gray Kessinger. Maybe the best all-around shortstop we've had since Mike Bianco took over, which is really saying something because we've had a lot of really, really great ones come through. But Gray defensively really struggled with the bat his freshman year. But as soon as his sophomore year come around, he hit like he was supposed to. But he was always the best fielding shortstop that I've ever seen here at Ole Miss. So that being an Ole Miss legacy on top of that as well, had to go with Gray here at short.
Zach Cozart, the blonde hair, the bat.
I get it.
Yep. I'm not saying anything else. That's Zach Cozart.
Yep. Major league success was up. Was actually an all-star with the Reds at one point as well. So obviously a very important player in this program's history. All right, I'm just going to rattle all 3 outfielders off at once. I do have it broke down left, center, and right, but I'm going to go ahead and go through all of them at one time. Left field, guy you've already brought up, Hitch. I'm putting Justin Bench out there for his versatility. I can stick him out there in left. I know what I'm going to get from him at the plate. Going to get a little bit of pop, a whole lot of contact, and a guy that you just want on your team because he can play all 3 outfield positions. He can play third. He can do a lot of different things for you on the baseball field. So I've got Justin Bench in left, J.B. Woodman in center, a guy that was a second-round pick of the Blue Jays coming out of Oxford. He was an All-American for us, true power speed guy, and one of the best defensive center fielders I've ever seen out there. And then in right field, going back to one of Mike's first teams and the first ever SEC Player of the Year in Ole Miss baseball history, and Eli Manning's backup, Seth Smith, out there in right field. Lefty with a ton of power. Again, a guy that got to the league, had a lot of success there in Colorado. Seth was one of the foundation pieces of this Mike Bianco program back in his early years. Like I said, SEC Player of the Year as SEC Freshman of the Year as a freshman. Went on to be an All-American by the time he left Oxford. So I'm giving Seth Smith there the nod in right field.
Yeah. Hey, all great. I'll rattle mine off too. I didn't really. I just went outfield kind of as a whole. Alex Presley. He was here.
Nice.
Drafted by the Pirates, I Believe. And had a pretty good career. Probably not as good as Cozart, but he was up for a while. Again, Seth Smith, right? Can't say too much or can't say enough about how good he was. And then, this is maybe a little bit of a surprising one. I don't know. I just love the fact that he could play center field. Thomas Dillard. He was so deceivingly quick, and he got good jumps on balls. And, man, he hit the ball an absolute ton. And so I loved watching him play. I've got one more offensive category, right? We didn't do DH. That's where I'm sliding Tim Elko in. Tim Elko, DH.
Okay, see, I considered Elko. I did not use him at DH, though. I'm putting Brian Petway there, and I'm going to be hitting all the bombs with him. Brian could absolutely get a hold of one. And if I'm not mistaken, when he ended up making it to the professional level, playing minor leagues, he really struggled with the wooden bat. And so he decided to become a knuckleball pitcher in the minors once he got there. So, but Brian Petway out there in right field, those teams with Stephen Head and Cozart and all those guys, Mark Wright out there in left field for those teams, just hit all the bombs. And Petway never got cheated on a swing. So I ended up putting him there at DH. I know it's kind of blasphemous that I made an entire lineup that didn't include Tim Elko, but that's where I'm at. I wanted to go a little bit deeper than, everybody knows how great the captain is. Now, one of the really fun parts was trying to build a pitching staff, because we have had all kinds of pitchers come through this program. And we went ahead and picked 4 starting pitchers instead of just a weekend. I figured we'd do the weekend rotation and then use the 4th one for a midweek or whatever. But I wanted to list 4 starting pitchers. And I went Drew Pomeranz, Doug Nikhazy, Lance Lynn, and have to give it to my man Dylan DeLucia with the last spot here. An absolute dude on the mound. One of the big reasons we ended up winning the national championship. Couldn't leave him out. And I think mainly it's because if you told me there was a must-win game for Ole Miss, he's one of the top 3 names that comes to mind, along with Pomeranz and Nikhazy. And then we know what Lance Lynn did. My God, he's still pitching in the majors now and having success. It's unbelievable. So, Pomeranz, Nikhazy, Lynn, DeLucia were my 4 starters.
Yep. That's it. I don't have a list. That's the list.
Yeah. So,
you got guys like you got Bobby Wall, Mike Myers, Ryan Rollison. Even guys like Satterwhite,
Scott Biddle, Mark Holloman, Will Klein, White Shore.
Will Klein.
Just goes on and on and on with the names you could have thrown out there for my God, so many. And then you look at the relievers, and I'm still going to do a little bit of national championship bias here. He recorded the last out, and he was absolute nails the last couple of years he was in Oxford. So I'm going Brandon Johnson, and then the all-time saves leader Brett Huber as well for my 2 relief pitchers. But again, Scott Biddle's a name you could have used there. Bobby Wall. There's a lot of really, really good ones. Dallas Wolfolk's another one that was really good. Aaron Greenwood, a guy that did a little bit of everything for us, ended up coming out of the pen, closing games for us, and starting there for a while. Parker Caracci had a really good stretch in an Ole Miss uniform as well, coming out of the bullpen.
Yeah, our starters are the same. All right, and I've got Huber here as the all-time saves leader. The only difference instead of Brandon Johnson, I went a previous generation to Taylor Broadway. He pitched here a couple of years, and he nailed down a lot of Gunnar Hoagland and Doug Nikhazy saves. So he even started that super regional. Yeah, he even started that super regional, right?
Started.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken, he's knocking on the door of the major leagues right now as well with the Boston Red Sox. He's performed well in their minor league system.
Nice.
Yeah. So, But that's what we've got for y'all today. Hope y'all enjoyed this all-time Bianco era thing. It's something that really just popped up in our heads this morning, so we kind of threw it together real quick. But thought it'd be a fun exercise and hopefully something fun that y'all wanted to listen to and maybe bring back some memories too, because that's kind of how it was working with me. It was kind of nostalgic going through all of these names and remembering what they did throughout their careers in Oxford. So that was a lot of fun to be able to go back and look them up and remember what they had done for us. And if y'all hadn't seen it yet, go watch the video Ole Miss put out with all the former players congratulating Mike Bianco. Absolute chills. It goes to show you how many great players he's had come through this program and just how much he has meant to them as well as their lives have gone on, whether it be in professional baseball or going professional in something else in life. He obviously made a huge difference in all of these guys' lives, and that's just really fun to see. So congratulations, Mike, on 1,000. Hopefully you've got many, many more coming in a Rebel uniform.
We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, that's right. All right, everybody. We'll be back with y'all later on this week to talk about Ole Miss and Alabama. And until then, hope y'all have a good one. And hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.